Hello, and welcome to the Hearsay podcast, a joint project between Probono Students Canada, University of Calgary chapter, and the CJSW 90.9 FM. This is a podcast where University of Calgary law students discuss a variety of legal topics with a plethora of professionals in the field. We'd like to emphasize that the information you hear today is legal information and not legal advice, as we are law students and not lawyers. This podcast is purely for information purposes. If you do require legal advice, please consult a lawyer, as there is no substitute for a professional. My name is Onyinye Odita, and I'll be your host today. Today, we'll be continuing our conversation with Dr. Gideon Christian on the legal implication of the use of facial recognition technology. Dr. Christian is a professor at the University of Calgary. His areas of study include artificial intelligence and law, electronic discovery law, environmental impact of new technology, and algorithmic bias of AI technology in the Canadian criminal justice system. In 2023, he was awarded a grant by the Office of the Privacy Commissioner Contributions Program for the purposes of conducting research in complex issues surrounding private sector development and deployment of AI bias facial recognition technology in Canada.
In the spirit of reconciliation, we would first like to acknowledge that Hearsay is recorded on Treaty 7 territory. We would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising the Siksika, Piikani, and Kaina First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and the Stoney Nakoda, including the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney First Nations. The city of Calgary is also home to Métis Nation of Alberta, Districts 5 and 6. I would also like to note that the University of Calgary is situated on the land adjacent to where the Bow River meets the Elbow River, and that the traditional Blackfoot name of this place is Mokinsis, which we now call the city of Calgary.
This episode is based off an article written by Dr. Gideon Christian on the use of AI facial recognition technology in the retail industry. In this article, he comments on the investigation by the Office of the Privacy Commissioner, OIPC, regarding the implementation of these technologies in the Canadian Tire store in British Columbia. Enjoy the show. You are listening to the Hearsay podcast on CJSW 90.9 FM. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Gideon Christian, for making out time to be with us again at the studio.
Thank you for having me again.
Okay, you're welcome. So the second episode of this conversation is actually spurred by one of your articles that you published sometime January in 2024 about the use of AI's facial recognition technology in the retail industry. We know that the facial recognition technology is currently being used in retail stores to identify individuals who are returning items to ensure that they are not returning stolen items for cash refund, and also to identify persons of interest. But before we go really deep into this conversation, I'm just super curious to know, your personal experience at Walmart that triggered your interest in investigating the use of facial recognition technology in retail stores. And would you like to tell us how that experience sort of has shaped your perspective on the issue?
Oh, thank you very much for having me to discuss this important topic. It's one thing when it comes to issue relating to use of these technologies. It's one thing to be researching on these technologies. It's a totally different level to experience them or kind of experience them, their use firsthand. So I've been working, of course, on facial recognition technology, more like on its various use, both in immigration, law enforcement, use in establishments like the airports, or purported use or planned use in that area, and of course, the retail industry. So this is one area I've been working, and of course, that was part of the project, my project that is being funded by the Office of the Privacy Commissioner. But that experience in Walmart was kind of, was another dimension,
Yeah.
practical, encounter with what you've been researching theoretically. So this happened in the summer of 2023. And of course, having lived in Calgary, there is this particular period in Calgary that is always characterized by very hot or heat wave. So I went into Calgary, a Walmart store in Calgary to buy some fan for use at home. So I bought this fan. I went home, assembled the fan. I noticed that one of them was defective. So I decided to, of course, return it back to the store. This probably like less than 2 hours after I bought the item. Returning an item to the store, of course, and also being a Black person, you have to prepare yourself.
Yeah.
So I, of course, brought a copy of the purchase receipt. I took that with me because I know I bought it with credit card, and of course, there's evidence in my credit card, but just to make my journey faster, I decided to take the receipt with me. So when I walked into the store, walked to the return desk, just joined the queue there. And then when it got to my turn, I handed over the item to the gentleman who was there. And then now surrendered my purchase receipt to him. He was like, no, I don't need it. I was like, you bought 3 of these today, right? I was kind of super surprised.
Yeah.
He didn't even collect the receipt. So the question in my mind was, how did he know, or how could he have known that I bought 3 of these? He wasn't the person that checked me out. So all these things, these thoughts was processed. I had like 2 to 3 seconds to process what is going on.
Yeah.
So I quickly kind of responded, yeah, I bought 3 of them today. So he was like, okay, I don't need the receipt. He quickly processed the refund, and then I left the store. After I left the store, I was still thinking, what actually went on?
Yeah.
How did he know I
that?
bought 3 of the... And being somebody who is working in the area of facial recognition technology,
You're
of course,
constantly alert.
it's used a lot. So the only reasonable conclusion I could reach at this point in time was that it's likely this store is using facial recognition technology, because maybe probably he will have seen from the record by pulling up that record through his the system there. He could be able to detect that, but I was not sure, and I'm still not sure up till today that technology is being used there. So what you have, it's my suspicion.
Yeah.
And the only reasonable explanation I have is to allege that, well, they are using facial recognition technology there. So when I left there, of course, the more I began to research, continue my research in this area, that was when I came across the BC Office of the Privacy Commissioner investigation into Canadian Tire use of that technology. So that investigation report brought back that suspicion I had visiting that Walmart store.
Yeah.
So to try to put matter to rest, I quickly sent an email to Walmart Corporation Canada, or Walmart Canada Corporation.
Which was super proactive of you.
Yeah. So this was many months after this thing has happened. So I sent them that email, I was trying to find out from them, hey, I'm one of your customer in Alberta. I regularly visit your stores in Alberta. I need to find out whether you deploy or you have deployed facial recognition technology in your stores, and what are my rights to opt out from the use of that technology.
Wow.
So I wasn't expecting an immediate reply, but I was so shocked after sending that email. I think probably took an hour or thereabout. I quickly got a response from Walmart Corporation Privacy Office telling me that they do not use facial recognition technology in any of their stores in Canada. So remember, I do not have any evidence. I'm still acting on suspicion. So I have no other choice than to take that response for its face value, that Walmart Canada does not use facial recognition technology. But I must tell you that even right now that I'm speaking with you, I have not found an answer to that inquiry as to how that gentleman in the return desk got to know that I bought 3 of those standing fans that day.
I know in your article you sort of discussed how, this technology is helpful for fraud prevention, especially in the context of organized retail crime. Do you believe there are like alternative or less invasive methods that could be equally or more effective in addressing, this issue of fraud?
So, yeah, the technology, it's effective and efficient in addressing, one of the biggest problem the retail industry faces today, which is organized retail crime. But the question then is whether this technology is the best approach in addressing this particular problem. So this is a kind of cost-benefit analysis, right? Facial recognition technology, it's a very invasive technology. So this basically requires installing supersonic cameras in the stores, which takes visual images of every person entering into that store, convert these images to these video images to a still image of the individual's face. Then that still image is not converted to a biometric image or biometric template, which is unique to a particular individual, and then stored in the system for some period of time, depending on where that individual falls, whether that individual is just classified as a customer or classified as a person of interest. That determines the duration, at least based on our review or my review of the investigation by the Office of the Privacy Commissioner. So now, in talking about looking at this, the problem here then is this information that is being collected, which is very sensitive. Are the individuals who have this personal information aware that this personal information is being collected?
Yeah.
Are they aware? Did they consent to the information being collected? So this is still an aspect of the privacy issue concern, because when it comes to right to privacy is one of the highest rights we enjoy in Canada. And that's why it's enshrined in the Charter, right? So the fact that the founding fathers of our Constitution deemed it fit that this right should be enshrined in the Charter highlights the importance of this right.
Yeah.
Now, the issue is this. If you have to deal with organized retail crime by taking the facial image of every individual that walks into your store, is that not an overbroad approach in addressing the problem? How many percentage of customers that enter into Canadian Tire stores or Walmart stores are actually engaged in shoplifting?
Yeah.
So let us say, for example, out of 1,000 persons that enter into any of these stores, let's say maybe 10 of them, or let's even say 50 of them are shoplifters. Mm-hmm. Does this justify taking and storing the personal, very sensitive, private information of 1,000 persons in order to prevent 50 persons from shoplifting or 10 persons from shoplifting? So this is a sort of, trying to balance the privacy rights of individuals who enter into these stores compared to the attempt by these stores to prevent shoplifting. That justification is not really evident in this analysis. I don't think any store should be allowed to develop biometric information of every individual that entered the store just because they want to prevent some few outlaws who enter into these stores for the purpose of shoplifting.
Now, speaking of racial and gender bias, right? The article highlights concerns about these issues of how the technology is sort of causing some form of racial and gender bias, particularly its higher error rates in identifying people of color. So, I was just wondering, how do you propose that the retail industry addresses these biases? And should there be some form of regulatory measures to just make sure that there is a very high level of fairness?
So when it comes to, the issue of racial and gender barriers, it's by now clearly established that facial recognition technology has very high error rates when it comes to individuals from particular racial community and individuals from particular gender in a particular racial community. So to put it more plainly, facial recognition technology has a higher error rate in identifying darker skinned individuals, and it has its highest error rate in identifying darker skinned females.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the essence of deploying this technology in retail industry is to be able to identify individuals like persons of interest, right? So that means if I walk into a retail store or retail outlet that uses this technology, it scans my face, turn the video scan into digital photo, develop a biometric template, and then searches the database to see whether I've had issues previously in that store, probably if I'm a person of interest, right? And if there's a match, it alerts individuals in the store, like the store security or staff, okay, this person is here, get rid of him or keep an eye on him.
Yeah.
That's how this works. Now, what is the problem with this? Now, we're talking about the error rates of this technology. So if I, as a black person, walk into any of this shop and then it's developed my biometric template and then now runs it through the database, and because of the high error rate, it matches my face to some other person or individual who is a person of interest, what does that mean? Or what implication would that have? I basically have security in that store either coming to kick me out of the store or accusing me of
harassment,
or basically harassment in public space. So, and this is what a sort of double trouble for individuals from the racial community, because ordinarily we've seen evidence there, news media coverage of the type of discriminatory treatment that black people face when they go shopping. And that was what led to the coining of the term shopping white black. And this is occurring when we have not even deployed facial recognition technology. Black people are unnecessarily being surveilled when they go shopping. Right? Now, this is a problem that is existing. Now, when you bring in a technology that has a very high error rate in identifying this particular set of individuals from this racial group, what you're basically doing is adding another layer of discrimination upon an existing discrimination.
It seems like your argument is don't use facial recognition in retail stores. So how do you think we can sort of balance, this issue that the technology is bringing in terms of, racial bias?
For now, I'm not even of the position, neither do I propose that there is a resolution or drawing a sort of I do not think there's a justification for the use of the technology in the retail industry, to put it more bluntly. Why do I say that? First, the technology has a very high error rate. Facial recognition technology has not gotten to the stage where, as a person of color, I feel safe having that technology being deployed in surveilling the identity of people of color. That's one. Secondly, the privacy issue implicated in the deployment of this technology in the retail industry, it's another reason why the technology should not and cannot be used. I have noted this earlier. The number of persons who are engaged in shoplifting in the retail industry compared to the individuals that visit this outlet for legitimate business, the number is just too different to warrant the deployment of a technology that will basically develop biometric information of every individual entering into a store just for the purpose of trying to fish out some few outlaws who go there for some other nefarious purposes like shoplifting. So there are better ways. And I'm not underestimating the problem the retail industry face in dealing with organized shoplifting or organized crime of shoplifting. It is a problem, right? But what I'm saying is this. The privacy right of Canadians cannot and should not be sacrificed for the purpose of enabling the retail industry to deal with the issue of organized crime of shoplifting. The retail industry should look for a better way of addressing this problem that does not necessarily require every Canadian to basically sacrifice their privacy right, because we want to help this particular industry to deal with this problem.
So going back to privacy issues, how do you see the evolution of privacy regulations and ethical guidelines to keep the pace with the rapid advancement of, surveillance technologies? Because it seems like we're going to see more and more of this kind of technologies, even way beyond, facial recognition technologies.
Absolutely. It's an ongoing problem that will not go away soon, if ever. The reason, of course, is being that technology advances at a very high speed. Regulation of technology has never caught up with advancements in technology. So regulation is always a step or more, or thousands of steps behind the technology it seeks, the regulation seeks to regulate. So what we have now is a situation where we have to rely on existing law, either stretching them or overstretching them in order to address this problem. And the fact is very clear when it comes to privacy issue related to new and emerging technology. We have rules, we have laws, we have regulations that basically provide principles that should guide in the regulation, even though the those laws and regulations might not be up to date, but the principles we find in these existing laws can serve as a guide. We've already made reference to charter rights to privacy, right? Even though when the charter was drafted, there was nothing like facial recognition technology. But what is the principle behind this charter right? The principle is that individuals should consent, or at least consent to, or individuals should have some autonomy with regards to their privacy. And when a third party has to encroach that privacy, the individual should be given an opportunity to either consent to that taking place or not.
Yeah.
And that equally applies to the use of this adoption of this technology. And this is not just a charter right issue. We also have provincial and federal laws as outside the charter, that addresses this issue. The privacy right, of course, comes up here with regards to, maybe government collection and use of information or private information about individuals. When it comes to third-party use of such information, maybe at federal level, you have PIPEDA, which is the Personal Information and Protection of Electronic Documents Act. At provincial levels, you have provincial legislations that also addresses this issue. So whereas these legislations are not up to date with the technology, the principles in these legislations can serve as a guide for us to be able to address these issues.
How can the public be better educated about the risk and implications of facial recognition technology? Because, recounting your experience at Walmart, not everyone is going to think so deeply about it, right? So how can we educate people and, encourage informed decisions about their privacy rights?
Like I noted earlier, my experience in Walmart, at best, it's a suspicion. Just kind of thinking, okay, how did this happen? So Walmart has denied their use of this technology, and believe me, as a lawyer, I do not have any evidence to counter that response I got from the privacy office, Walmart privacy office. I would still take it to mean that what they said is true, that they are not using the technology, even though I still have kind of question lingering on my mind based on my experience, and until I am able to gather evidence to the contrary, I think the email from Walmart privacy office still holds that they are not using the technology. But what aroused my attention when I visited that store and had this encounter was based on the fact that I'm working in this area. I'm aware of this technology.
Yeah.
A lay person
might
not even start thinking about, okay, are they using facial recognition technology here? So what I'm basically saying is that information about this technology is not, and its use or deployment is not really something that is commonplace out there. But I think we are kind of getting to that point where people have to kind of start paying attention as to the deployment of this technology, where they are deployed and where they are used. And that knowledge is very important because, like I noted, individuals, Canadians, of course, have autonomy over their privacy, right? If you have this kind of invasive technology being deployed, individuals should be able to know what right do they have to consent to the collection of their biometric information or to refuse to consent. That is very, very important because that goes to the heart of that right to privacy. In the case of the BC Office of Privacy Commissioner investigation, they found out, of course, that there was what appeared to be a notice at these very particular stores about collection of information. But that investigation noted that the notice in the stores did not actually provide sufficient information about what personal information is being collected, what those information are used for. And since that notice is lacking, the individuals whose biometric information has been collected in that store cannot be said to have actually consented to the collection of that information, because you only consent after full disclosure.
Yeah.
So if the disclosure is not full, then that consent cannot really be genuine.
Just to wrap up this episode, the investigation highlighted extensive breach of privacy rights by the Canadian Tire stores. So what lessons can businesses and industries learn from this case in terms of the responsible use of emerging technologies?
So what businesses can learn from this case is technology is good. Technology is amazing. Businesses save a lot of costs by innovating, deploying technology, right? So I am not in any way going to discourage any business from deploying technology where such technology will result in innovative provision of services to the public. But the fact is that in deploying this technology, there are important analyses that has to be done, right? If you are deploying technology that involves collection of personal information, you have to conduct some sort of privacy impact assessment to know what information you need to collect. What disclosure do you order the members of the public? What do they need to be aware about your deployment of this technology, especially when it comes to collection of their personal information, so that they can fully consent to the use of such information or collection of their personal information through such technology. So, and another thing businesses should avoid is surreptitious deployment of this technology. If an issue arises, then you quickly dismantle it, as was done in this case. The speed at which the Canadian Tire stores in BC dismantle that technology tells you that even when they were deploying, they knew that,
it was going to be a problem.
It was kind of problematic. We're not really sitting on a solid foundation in deploying this technology. Because if they were aware that, we are very sure about this technology, about our collection and use of personal information, they should have probably gone ahead, continue your investigation and let's see what the outcome will be. But immediately they became aware everything was, kind of dismantled. And good enough, of course, they cooperated with the investigation, and at the end of the investigation, they basically destroyed all data that they have collected. But one problem I have with the outcome of that investigation is the fact that the BC Office of Information and Privacy Commissioner did not require Canadian Tire to disclose to individuals whose personal biometric information has been wrongly collected in violation of the BC privacy law. That we want to bring this to your attention. That was not done. Because this is their personal information. They ought to have known, right? So I was expecting the BC Office of the Information and Privacy Commission to have required Canadian Tires to notify those individuals that, look, we collected this information. However, after investigation and coming to the conclusion that this information was not properly collected, we have destroyed the information.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gideon Christian, for your time. I've personally learned a lot. These kind of conversations are very important because, not everyone has a legal mind. Not everyone is very conscious. So, these forms of conversations are very, very important. So, on this note, we thank you and, we bring the end of the episode.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Yep.
You're listening to the Hearsay podcast. We are proud to present you with legal information, but please remember that this is legal information, not legal advice. If you require legal advice, please consult a lawyer. The Hearsay podcast is a joint project between CJSW 90.9 FM and Pro Bono Students Canada, University of Calgary chapter. If you'd like to hear more podcasts like this, the Hearsay podcast can be found on Google Podcasts, Apple Music, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.